The Super Bowl has passed, and we are fully in the offseason now for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks and Super Bowl MVP, Sam Darnold, probably. Yeah, let's go Sam Darnold.
I'm going to go JSN.
I was thinking either Darnold, JSN, or Kenneth Walker. We're recording this on Friday, and so we're guessing. But congrats to the Seahawks, obviously. Let's talk some Dynasty buys. Some of these guys are going to be buy lows. Some of them are going to be buy at prices. So again, not all of them are like, hey, we have to buy low because there's a market dip. Some of these guys, we just like their price. That first one is a pretty good example here of a guy that I don't think you're buying him low. I think you're just buying him to buying him. And very rarely do we tell you to buy a second-round player, but that's going to be the case today with Omar and Hampton. I have a rich history with Omar and Hampton. I took him in the Flock League. He pretty much lost me that league, which is fine. It was my fault for picking him, and I probably shouldn't have trusted anybody in that offense at the time. And the thing about the Chargers offense, as we've talked about on here multiple videos now, is it drastically changed when they took Greg Roman out of that room and brought in Mike McDaniel. That's literally maybe the biggest upgrade of all time. And for Omar and Hampton, especially what you've seen in an offense that's run by Mike McDaniel for the past couple of years is a running back that has receiving upside be a top 5 fantasy running back pretty much anytime he breathes on the field. Because Devon Achane was more of a receiver than he was a running back for the most part in Miami. Very different skill set from Omar Hampton. Very different running back than Omar and Hampton. So they're going to do two different things. But I think the main thing to consider from that, and the main thing to take away, is that in a Mike McDaniel offense, you're going to get running backs heavily involved in the receiving game, and there's pretty good evidence of that in the last couple of years when he was the head coach at Miami. And so because of that, Omar and Hampton, we look at somebody as somebody who is almost guaranteed, if he stays healthy, to be an absolute stud next year in fantasy football, and therefore his value go up in Dynasty and him potentially be a first-round pick. And so when we're looking at Omar and Hampton's price right now, he's going in the mid-second right now. It's going to be pretty hard to buy him in a lot of places. You might have to overpay to get him, and we probably wouldn't overpay. It's just more of a, hey, send a feeler for Omar and Hampton because we think his situation is that much better. This is basically us planting our flag on Hampton for next year, saying that we think he's going to be pretty special in Dynasty leagues. And the other thing is with Hampton, I think no matter what happens, he's probably going to maintain his value. So he's a fairly risk-free buy in the sense that I think that he's going to maintain his value at the very least, and if he gains value, it's just an extra bonus, but the production that you could potentially get, you could be buying into the next, Bijan or Gibbs that's going into the first round here. And again, this is not a buy low, it's just a buy at price. And so when we're talking about buying at price, you kind of have to dance around the other guys around him. Real quick, the statistics for Mike McDaniel as an offensive coordinator in 2020 in San Francisco, even though he wasn't calling plays then, and then the 4 years of in Miami, when you're looking at the rushing offense, the attempts was never necessarily good.
Not with Miami, but with San Fran, that's like how he got his head coaching job.
It was
because of how good the run game was. He went away from it in 2022, came back to it in 2023. They're actually super efficient while being like middle of the league in rushing attempts with an undersized running back in Achane, who's kind of a hybrid, and then Raheem Mostert, who's like a 30-year-old running back. They, again, were down so often and had such an inconsistent passing offense with 2 of the last couple of years that they never could be like top of the league in rushing attempts. But this is, again, we're back to an offensive coordinator outlook for Mike McDaniel, which I think is him at his best. In a situation where they just heavily invested in Hampton last season, you saw what his upside was athletically and like as a talent. I think it's wheels up for Omar and Hampton. I think you're going to see a ridiculous amount of attempts. I think they're going to run their offense through him, try to slow the game down, make life easier for Justin Herbert when he was running for his life last year. It's going to look pretty similar to the San Fran offense of 2021.
I think it's going to look great for Hampton. And so in terms of the moves we would make here, we would down tier from Ashton Jeanty to Hampton if you still can. A lot of times these guys are being valued very similarly in leagues, but I do think Jeanty's still over Hampton in almost everybody's rankings. And so I think it's something that you could look at, and you maybe just get a small plus on top there. In terms of
any plus I would take, really.
Yeah.
Because we have him in the same tier.
If you can pivot, the only guy that's like value equivalent to him that I would be comfortable just saying, hey, we'll pivot from one to the other is I'll take the old Mike McDaniel running back and I'll move him for the new Mike McDaniel running back. And so I'll take Achane and move him for Hampton as a pivot. I generally just like Hampton more. That's more of a preference thing, though, and I don't blame you either way. In terms of up-tiering here, taking Travion Henderson, Jonathan Taylor, and Bucky Irving, adding a little bit on top and getting to Omar and Hampton is a good move in leagues where you already have enough upside at your flex spot. You maybe have too many guys on your bench and you need to up tier and get some of those higher upside guys or maybe some elite guys in your starting spots. Hampton's a good up tier target, and up tiering from those 3 guys is a good move as well. And so with Hampton, again, not a buy low at all, but one that we're super high on. And again, we'll say this a million times, but we can wear the stupid hat because hand up, we didn't think Greg Roman was going to get fired. I've evidently, some people thought that was going to happen, but we recorded that video before the playoffs, and I don't think before the playoffs people were talking about that. And so again, we'll wear the stupid hat as long as you want us to, maybe for the rest of all time. But now that Mike McDaniel's there, I'm not shying away from these Chargers guys. I think they're going to be fantastic there.
Agreed. Next guy we're going to have here is DeAndre Swift. We're going to move all the way down ADP, all the way down value for running backs, and go to a guy that kind of seems pretty ugly at face value. Like, DeAndre Swift is a career journeyman at this point. He's going to be probably a lot of places for a while. He's got enough athletic talent and really, really good receiving upside that there's always going to be room for him to get opportunities somewhere until he just loses a step. And I think it's going to be a while until that happens. And that's part of the point part of the reason that we kind of like Swift is he doesn't really carry much value at all in the offseason. He's treated like a short-term production type of guy where it's like, yeah, he's pretty volatile. You never know when he's going to be irrelevant, but that's just kind of the reality with Swift is every single year for the last few years since he was traded away from Detroit, everyone's been like, oh, he's a one-year rental. He's a one-year rental. He's a one-year rental. He's been a one-year rental for the last 3 years and has been a mid to high end running back 2 every single year, while having over 1,000 rushing yards 2 of those seasons. And this past year, 228 PPR points in 16 games, 4.8 yards per carry, which was the second best ever in his career, 9 touchdowns on the ground, another touchdown in the air. Again, just under 9 yards per reception. This was alongside Kyle Monangai, who was getting some goal line work as well. Again, kind of being utilized in a running back committee. And this dude was flexible every single week. And you feel pretty good about having Swift on your team if you're a contending roster last year. This is the reality with DeAndre Swift, guys. Every time we get to August, he's going to be in some offense in some situation where he's probably set up to get quite a bit of touches. And he's just going to continue to do this. I mean, he's literally been a running back 2 since he came into the league. He's never not been a running back 2. In points per game, he's been a running back 1, obviously, if you remember his 2021 season where he looked really good and got banged up. But he's actually, for the last 3 years, while the biggest knock on DeAndre Swift's profile has been health, the last 3 years he's played 16, 17, and 16 games. So he's been more than available. More than available for you guys. Do I think that he's going to go back to Chicago this year? I think of all the years for him to come back to Chicago, this would be the year because the running back class or the rookie class is so poor. They would have to really, really like Jadarian Price or Jonah Coleman day 2 if they wanted to take a shot on one of those guys. And honestly, Swift's skill set is pretty complementary to Monangai's. I think they might just ride it back for one more year, possibly. Or they could always go and get somebody else in free agency. Maybe they really like Breece Hall, or maybe they really want to go get Kenneth Walker, or something like that. But honestly, the reality is, I think the idea of a better running back going in that offense is a lot more attractive than the actual reality of them probably potentially just sticking with him this season. And again, if he's not with the Bears this year, he's going to go somewhere else and he's going to get these opportunities somewhere else. As far as the guys that we would look to down tier to DeAndre Swift from, I'll go cross positional here. I'll go to a wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, consistently valued over DeAndre Swift. I'd do that all day long. Ricky Pearsall, you're just hoping that he's available and going to be on the field. And when he is, he's the most boom-bust wide receiver of all time. He doesn't command enough target volume. I'd rather take the consistent running back who you know exactly what he's going to be for you every single year. I would up tier from a couple of running backs, one of which is a backup. The other one has kind of a shaky situation this year because there's a new coaching staff in Pittsburgh, but Jaylen Warren and Blake Corum. Blake Corum, literally all of his value is tied to being the handcuff insurance play with Kyren Williams. And yes, Blake Corum had a couple of touchdowns at the end of the season. He had a couple of good games. 70+% of the snap share was going to Kyren Williams still. Jaylen Warren, again, had pretty much his best season of his career. And in the best season of his career, he was splitting time with Kenneth Gainwell, who looked way better as a receiving option there. We really don't know what that offense is going to look like, what those running backs are going to look like, if Caleb Johnson is going to get more work. I feel a lot more safe with DeAndre Swift and taking the shot on him in that price range and paying the little plus on top from Warren or Corum and just sticking with Swift. Pivots between Monangai and Swift, I think at this point, we'll probably give the nod to DeAndre Swift. If Swift ends up leaving, you're going to see some value bumps for both players because they're no longer going to be tied together. But I'm not going to lie, if Swift ends up staying and he's the one that's getting paid the money because Monungai's on a day 3 rookie contract deal, I think we would give the nod to Swift there because it's just, again, there's higher investment there if they want him to stick around. I think it's kind of I don't think there's like a losing scenario here, even if Monungai and Swift end up being on different teams, because Swift will gain value in that situation regardless. Zach Charbonnet is another guy that we would pivot from. Charbonnet tore his ACL. Like, honestly, if Charbonnet didn't tear his ACL, this might be a different conversation. If Kenneth Walker wasn't just going off in the playoffs, this would be a different conversation. But at this point, I would just go ahead and take the production that is going to come in 2026, whereas we don't really know when Charbonnet is going to be available.
I mean, the cap hit for DeAndre Swift is $8 million this year.
Yeah,
almost
that's
$9 million.
That's what he's going to get paid anywhere else. Like that's
if you're Chicago, like, do you want to run it back with something that wasn't broken? By the way, the pairing of Swift and Monungai was an effective pairing. They had a good rushing offense, and
right. If they want to get a running back,
pay Breece Hall $15 million a year,
right.
But like I just don't see why they do that at the moment. With Swift technically under contract for another year with the potential out that they could still take. And just a couple things here. Swifty, 9th in true yards per carry, 8th in true yards per touch. Oh, sorry, just yards per touch there. 18th in target share. He was 6th in yards per reception at 8.8 yards per reception. He was 13th in receiving yards, 12th in rushing yards. So a lot of his metrics here are pretty good. 16th in targets, 12th in yards created per touch. I think Swift was fine. I think if this is a risk, this is a little bit of a risk, but actually, again, like when you're buying somebody at a 9th round price, I don't think it's that much of a risk. We're basically just betting that if Swift does go back to Chicago, his value is going to go up. And so I think this is an easy, like, cheap, hey, I think you can get some value wins here and also a potential flex guy for next year. And if he doesn't get re-signed there, I think he's going to go somewhere and have a role. And so when he gets signed somewhere else, then, but I don't think they're going to cut him. I think they're going to re-sign him, which is why I've been pivoting more towards Swift and Monungai recently. If you'd like to get some buys specific to your Dynasty team, we can give you the players to sell and players to buy in specific trades on our team blueprint. You can get a free team blueprint at flockfantasy.com/domain. If you sign up with the annual Mother Flocker tier with code domain, it comes with a free blueprint. It comes with infinite blueprint. You can enter it for Flex Night. We're giving away a grand prize of you fly here, we put you up in a hotel, you're here for us with us the entire draft weekend, and even make an appearance on the show or something like that. And so if you'd like to win the grand prize, if you'd like to enter for all the other prizes that we have for Flex Night, again, you can check it out at the link below. But if you become a member, we can give you a blueprint for your team specific and tell you which moves you should be making on your Dynasty team. So flockfantasy.com/domain, you can check it out at the link below. Let's talk about Terry. This one, I think, is pretty straightforward to me. Terry had the best year of his career with Jaden Daniels in Jaden Daniels' rookie year. And this year, a lot of things happened. But basically, Terry got hurt, and then Jaden Daniels got hurt, and then Terry got hurt, and then Jaden Daniels got hurt. And so the moral of the story there is Terry and Jaden Daniels really didn't play together that much this year. You didn't really see them on the field together a ton. You saw it in the first 2 weeks. In week 8 against Kansas City, Jaden Daniels didn't play, and then Terry came back in week 13, and Jaden Daniels played week 14. They played that 1 week together. Terry had 7 points in PPR leagues, and then that was it. And so, you didn't really see Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels 2.0 this year. You saw Terry McLaurin featuring, who was the backup there? My gosh.
Josh Johnson. Because, Mariota, too.
Mariota, thank you. That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
But it was eventually Josh Johnson, too.
It was. And then you saw Jaden Daniels, and they were throwing the ball to I don't know what they were doing there. They were honestly a train wreck pretty much the entire year. But the fact of the matter is, Terry McLaurin's 30 years old. I do think he was playing some of the best football of his career and played the best fantasy football of his career in 2024. Even not on the highest target share of his career, just the efficiency. He also had 13 touchdowns that year. So regression was...
Which, disclaimer, he was a regression candidate big time.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Regression was coming no matter what, but I don't think that's what this was. I think it was just he was injured for part of the year, and Jaden Daniels was injured for part of the year. Like, the Commanders are going to be trying to bounce back this year, and I think that a big part of that's going to be Terry McLaurin. And so Terry, when I'm looking at the price range he's sitting in right now in Dynasty, I just don't see how you can take some of these other guys over Terry McLaurin. Yeah. For me, it's an absolute no-brainer when I'm sitting on the board, and I've got DK, Michael Wilson, Christian Watson, Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers, Matthew Golden, Xavier Worthy, and Terry McLaurin. He is the guy there. You're like, okay, you're obviously going to take him, right? He's got the best. He's got one of the best quarterbacks out of that group, if not the best quarterback out of that group. He's probably the best receiver out of that group. And I think he has the highest upside for production next year. I think he's going to be somebody you can flex. And again, not to mention the price is so low. This really is a buy low. Terry's coming off of a year where he, again, didn't do anything, and his price has dropped in Dynasty since then. And because of it, and I'm saying that's warranted. I think he should drop in price. But I don't think he's dead. I think he has another good year or two in him, and so I'm going to buy before that happens. In terms of down tiering to Terry McLaurin, it's not really a move I'm probably making. There's not a ton of guys because you're not going to down tier from Hunter or Addison or Adams or Waddle or Burden to Terry McLaurin, so I'm not really worried about giving down tier targets. You can up tier though. You can take Xavier Worthy, Matthew Golden, and DJ Moore and up tier to Terry. You'd only have to add a small piece, and I think Terry McLaurin is somebody you feel good about starting your flex spot. And Worthy and Golden and DJ Moore, guys, you want to start in your flex spot if you want to get 0 points half the time. And so I would rather start Terry McLaurin. I think Terry has better upside from a production standpoint next year than those guys do. You can pivot from a couple guys here. Jaden Higgins, I mentioned all these guys. Jaden Higgins, I like for a rebuild reload, and I would rather have Higgins on a rebuild reload, but on a contending team, it's not even close. I'd rather have Terry McLaurin. Ricky Pearsall, again, you guys know how we feel about Ricky Pearsall. If you guys want to invest in the almost 26-year-old wide receiver that's never finished higher than wide receiver 60 in Dynasty Fantasy Football, be my freaking guest. But we're not going to go out of our way, and people say you're going to regret it. It wouldn't be the first time we were wrong about something, and we'll just regret it. He's never been higher than wide receiver 70. He's never played more than 11 games. He didn't have a touchdown this year. So I would rather there's almost every single receiver in that range I'd rather have over Ricky Pearsall. And I know he kind of caught some strays there, but again, people are just oh, you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it. I just don't think so, but we'll see. And
we haven't regretted it for 3 years now. So
and Christian Watson, Christian Watson's kind of the same thing. Christian Watson looked good last year. Christian Watson's never finished higher than the wide receiver 40 in fantasy football. And there's a pretty clear reason for that, and I'll let you figure out why. But I would much rather have Terry. I think Terry's going to be more reliable than Christian Watson. I also think he has more upside. I think he can be more consistent. And so I'd rather have Terry than all those guys. And so, again, in that price range, 9th, 10th round price for Terry McLaurin, you're talking about guys you could potentially flex next year. These are the type of guys in February, now that we are literally 8 months away from the NFL season. Those are the guys you want to buy now because people aren't thinking about production. People aren't thinking about it, crusty old vets doing something for their team. They're thinking about, rookies and young players. And when people are doing that, that's when I go get my Terry McLaurins for 9th, 10th round prices. He averages 13 points per game next year, 14 points per game, and I get to flex him half the time, and I win my Dynasty Championship. Go buy Terry McLaurin.
Jaxson Dart up next. I think there's going to be a lot of questions about Jaxson Dart because of the unpopular, granted, admittedly very unpopular hiring with Matt Nagy as the new offensive coordinator there. I think that's one of the worst offensive coordinator hires that you could ever make. I will never understand how he even got head coaching interviews this season. How the frick did Matt Nagy get head coaching interviews this season?
You want to know who else they're going to bring in?
Head coach Greg Roman. I saw that. It's ridiculous.
I don't think it's any freaking secret why, but I'm just saying, caveat, I don't think it's any freaking secret why an organization wouldn't want to deal with that. I'm just saying. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, and go ahead and get Jesse Minter instead.
We're going to find out. Jesse Minter didn't hire Greg Roman. Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's not on his staff. That puts him at least somewhat in the ballpark of equivalency. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the reason we have Jaxson Dart listed as a buy here is because of all the concerns that we have with Matt Nagy as an offense coordinator, play caller. It is mainly in the passing game, and a majority of Jaxson Dart's high-end production comes in the run game. You saw it this season. He can be a timing passer, and heck, maybe he even develops and ends up being better. I don't know if he's going to do it with Nagy, but you've seen the struggles that the Chiefs' offense has had since Nagy has been the OC. Some of it, admittedly, has been tied to the regression of Travis Kelce, the exit of Tyreek Hill. They haven't been able to find a Tyreek Hill really to match that. Their offense did look quite a bit better once Rashee Rice came in before he was injured, and then this year it kind of all just fell apart. But one thing specifically that was really, really like a big knock on the offense was the deep ball completion percentage, which you could put the blame on Nagy, you could put the blame on Mahomes. Mahomes, honestly, accuracy-wise, deep down the field, has not been very good the last couple of years. But that's really been the big thing is they haven't had an explosive big play offense. They can play in timing, they can play in rhythm, they can be very efficient in the short to intermediate game, which is why Rashee Rice has been thriving in this sort of structure. Wando Robinson. But again, it's going to be an offense that is really going to be built around the run. And if you've seen with this new Chiefs offense with no Tyreek Hill since he left a few years ago, they have really tried to establish the run first. And you've had really good seasons from Pacheco. You've had old washed up Kareem Hunt be like looking like freaking Barry Sanders against the Colts defense, and then a couple of other teams this year too. But like they've had some pretty solid rushing offenses for the talent that they had there. It hasn't been like, anything above average, but it's been good enough where they have to like, again, consistently run the ball, because that's really the only thing that they could consistently do. This season, that's going to be all around Jaxson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. But really with Jaxson Dart, like, you've got a history of John Harbaugh. Obviously, since Lamar came into the league, how has John Harbaugh liked to operate his offenses? Through the run primarily, through his quarterback, through his star running back in Derrick Henry, through J.K. Dobbins before he had all of his injury issues. Like, that's always been their bread and butter. They're a slower team. They're not going to be like as explosive in the air consistently. They're going to have those opportunities and those chances like any offense is going to have, any competent offense, but you're going to see it mainly on the ground. So really, when you're talking about the one aspect of Jaxson Dart's game that he's really, really elite at, I do think that they're going to try and structure this offense in a way that kind of amplifies his biggest skill set, and that is his rushing ability, his escapability, which is, again, those are the types of quarterbacks that you want to go for and target in Dynasty Fantasy Football right now in this Superflex quarterback market. When so many guys are falling, so many guys are fluctuating up and down, the guys who usually maintain their value and have that really high floor are the ones that have such a high upside rushing opportunity and rushing upside, and that's Jaxson Dart in this offense.
Yeah.
As far as down tiers go, I would down tier from Caleb Williams and Jalen Hurts to Jaxson Dart. Caleb Williams, again, not enough rushing upside to, like, in our opinion, be like super, super safe and guaranteed to be a first-round pick for the rest of his life. Jalen Hurts, tush push is going to be banned. He looks like a worse passer than Jaxson Dart. Just saying. I would up tier from CJ Stroud. I would pay a nice, pretty price on top of CJ Stroud to get Jaxson Dart, honestly. And I would pivot from Herbert and Lawrence. I think Lawrence and Herbert in spurts have shown decent rushing capability, not to the level of Jaxson Dart that we saw in his rookie year.
All right, let's talk about Chase Brown next. This is called learning from your mistakes. This is called self-reflection. This is called not being an idiot twice in a row and being just not smart instead of being an idiot. We can do that. We can upgrade ourselves to just being dumb instead of stupid. And with Chase Brown, I think this is one where it's dang near a carbon copy of what you saw last year with James Cook, right? I mean, there are so many freaking similarities here. James Cook had completed 3 years in the NFL and was entering the last year of his rookie contract. Chase Brown has completed 3 years in the NFL. He's entering the last year of his rookie contract. James Cook in his first 3 years was running back 44, 12, and 8. Chase Brown in his first 3 years was running back 63, 10, and 7 on good offenses where they both have receiving upside, and they both have lower end draft capital relative to some of their peers that are performing at a high level at the position.
James Cook had second round draft capital.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Chase Brown though doesn't have.
Yeah.
They both. He was second round. That's crazy. I thought it was third round.
You were like, what?
Yeah,
when he went in the second.
I see so many similarities here, and the other similarity that I see is, now we're in the offseason and there's contract talks like going into there and they're working on extension. The difference is the Bills, like the news last year was that they couldn't get anything done. The Browns or the Bengals evidently are working pretty hard to get an extension done with Chase Brown. And what happened last year was we said, hey, sell James Cook because James Cook, they're not going to invest in him. He might go somewhere it's not as good a situation and he can't blah, blah, blah. There's touchdown regression. And then James Cook made us look like idiots and signed with the Bills again, and then had the same amount of touchdowns this year, and made us look like pure idiots. And so this year I'm not doing it with Chase Brown. I think there's a decent chance he gets re-signed. I think he's good enough to be re-signed. I think the Bengals like him enough to be re-signed.
I think that is case in point why I'm a fan of Chase Brown's price, honestly. Like, I don't really see any similarities between Chase Brown and James Cook. I think, like, the difference between them, which is so glaring, is the way they operate their offenses. One is an air raid offense. The other one is a run-first offense, and with James Cook, who is actually pretty efficient on the ground and pretty efficient in the air, and Chase Brown is neither. He's just a volume guy, and guess what? Zach Taylor's not getting fired.
Right.
So it's going to be the exact same. They're going to be down constantly in shootouts constantly, and with these shootouts, this receiving volume with these checkdowns are never going to go away. And this dude, I'm just telling you, like, every argument that we made for Chase Brown last year on he wasn't an efficient runner and he's not an efficient receiver. All of that reigned true this season, and he started the season awful. The first half of the year,
terrible.
He was awful. The second half of the year, he was one of the best running backs in the league. And part of that was like, okay, half of that was with Joe Burrow back, which helped. Like his receiving volume was pretty crazy when Joe Burrow came back. But again, like you can't ignore the 88 targets and 69 receptions, even though he only averaged 6.3 yards per reception. Like James Cook is averaging just under 9, and he had like over 5 yards per carry on the ground here. But it's just the fact that Brown is going to be on the field like so much, and on so many passing down sets as a check down option when the Bugles are inevitably down or in a shootout every single week, and he's going to get extended. Like, if anything, look at the Bugles organization and who they've been paying and what they've really invested in. They don't care about defense, clearly. They just want to keep all their star guys, and they want to keep Joe Burrow happy, and I guess that includes Chase Brown at this point. So I don't think you're going to see much change in how their offense operates for the next year or two. If they were going to fire Zach Taylor anytime, it was going to be this year, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, so with that, I think Chase Brown, what I think is going to happen is I think he's going to get a contract, and then I think he's going to go up in value, dude. Like, that's and the funny thing about James Cook is when he signed his contract last year, he didn't go up in value. So we erased our mistake and reversed course and said, okay, actually, we were wrong. James Cook is a pretty good value right now because he signed his contract, and we didn't expect it, and then nobody raise him in value at all. With Chase Brown, that's going to happen this year where he's going to sign a contract. I'm going the opposite. Now what's going to happen is we're going to say he's going to sign the contract he's not going to, and we're going to get screwed.
Yeah, that would be funny. I think a nice thing with Chase Brown, and really where I would encourage certain types of teams to target him, is mainly teams that are looking to contend in 2026, because I don't think that Chase Brown is going to be like the biggest value upside play of all time. When Chase Brown gets extended, I view it very similar to like Kyron Williams, where you remember when Kyron Williams got extended, his value didn't move.
No,
it didn't move at all.
It's only gone down since he got extended.
It did because of Blake Corum.
Yes.
But it did like insulate it quite a bit, where he would have fallen so much further if he didn't get extended with what Blake Corum did at the end of this last season. Yeah. Like he would be priced right now where Javonte Williams
100%.
is at the moment. But he's not because of the contract extension. I think the same thing's going to reign true for Chase Brown, where he's more just solidified himself as a mainstay, whereas previously we're like, oh, he's a short-term production guy because they're going to move on from him and replace him, and he's not efficient and he's not that good. He's kind of just a mainstay at this point.
Yeah, he's a mainstay. He's going to be on a second contract. Like, he's a highly productive player, and mainstay is not a slight to him at all. I would down tier from Travion Henderson, Bucky Irving, and Jonathan Taylor to Chase Brown and get some on top. That's a great move right now in Dynasty. I'm putting up tier from RJ Harvey and Travis Etienne. If you can take either of those guys plus a tiny bit and get to Chase Brown, I like it. It really just depends. I've seen Chase Brown go in the 6th round recently and in the 4th round. So I think people are kind of seeing the news with Chase Brown, and his value is really like different depending on your league. You got to know your league.
And we've seen Harvey go like 5th round and 7th round, and then Etienne like 8th round.
Exactly. So honestly, it's a lot up in the air with some of these running backs. That's also why my pivots are also going to be Harvey and Henderson, because there are a lot of leagues where Henderson and Chase Brown go back to back, and there are some leagues where Harvey goes up there with Chase Brown. If Chase Brown's going in the 6th, then Harvey's going right there with him. And so kind of the same targets here, but you kind of get the idea. I do like Chase Brown at price, and I will take the small value bump when he signs, and then take the production next year, and then we can reevaluate next year like what the rest of his dynasty lifetime value is going to be after he completes the first year. Technically, it'd still be the last year of his rookie contract. He's older. I like him. I think he's going to go up in value. I think this is a market play, and I think we're learning from our mistakes here. And if it burns us, whatever. I'm not going to be stubborn about it.
So one of the most fun market plays that we like to go ahead and do every single offseason are the guys who finished their year injured. And that's going to apply to a couple of tight ends here, George Kittle and Tucker Kraft. You could apply the same logic to both. Tucker Kraft obviously going to be a little more pricey. George Kittle going to be a lot cheaper. I mean, we've seen him fall as far as the 12th round in some startup drafts. And again, we're fully understanding of what George Kittle's 3-year outlook is, 2 to 3 year outlook. It's not, going to be anything like out of the ordinary for a guy that's 31, 32 years old, coming off of an Achilles injury. I will say, though, I don't think that it has necessarily caught on across the dynasty space yet that the news coming out of George Kittle's Achilles surgery and his rehab are that he's going to play this year. And when is he going to start? Is it going to be at the beginning of the season? Is it going to be after he misses 4 games? I don't really know. I'm not a doctor. We're going to learn more, I think, through the summer and then by the time we get to training camp. But I will say this will be the first time where we really see, given a short window, a reasonable but short window, for an older player who tears an Achilles or ruptures an Achilles, Are they actually going to be ready to go for the season? We almost saw it with Rodgers, or we tried to see it with Rodgers, but we never really got a chance because they were never in the playoff picture. And then, we've seen it. I feel like in basketball, the schedule doesn't work well enough for them to actually ever play the following year. So really, like with all of the new Achilles technology that they've been talking about and how quick the recovery timetable is for these guys, George Kittle is probably going to be case numero uno to see if this is actually legit. I think it's worth paying the price at 12th round prices.
He's so cheap.
He's so cheap that is reason alone for you to do that. Now, Tucker Kraft coming off the ACL, he's got a longer timetable of ability to rehab, coming off of a pretty rough ACL tear, which sucks. He was struggling with the same knee, had like some knee issues weeks before that, played on it, and then he ended up tearing his ACL. But he did that like in the middle of the season. Again, we don't know when exactly he's going to be back to start the year. But Tucker Kraft is another guy. If you remember when he was popping off at the beginning of the year, he was the consensus unquestioned tight end 3 in Dynasty. And I think that's what Tucker Kraft's upside is. I do think that Kraft still, coming off an ACL, still has upside. I don't think this is because some people are going to have TJ Hawkinson PTSD, which I totally understand. Hawkinson's knee injury, if you remember, that one was brutal. Like, that dude destroyed everything in his knee. This, from what I recall, I think Tucker Kraft only tore his ACL, and it wasn't nearly as brutal as the Hawkinson one. Like, it wasn't nearly as damaging or anything like that. I would down tier from Tyler Warren or Harold Fannin to Tucker Kraft plus. I would up tier from Ferguson, Strange, Goddard to George Kittle or Tucker Kraft. I would pivot from Laporta to Tucker Kraft. I would pivot from, we already mentioned honestly, you can pivot from Ferguson or Strange or Goddard to George Kittle. That's definitely possible. Maybe depending on where he goes in your startups or where he's valued in your league, maybe you could even get a little bit on top. But again, pretty simple here. Like, I don't need to tell you the production upside and capabilities of both of these guys. They've proven it at this point. But the reason they're being priced where they are is because of the injury. And we're going to play the injury dip here and play the risk of a 31-year-old coming off of an Achilles and a young, promising, potential foundational tight end who is coming off of an ACL. If anything, I'd probably bet on Kraft before I bet on George Kittle. In a vacuum, but at price, both of them are really, really great investments.
I mean, the other thing is of all the pass catchers in Green Bay, Kraft is the only one I want. He is the only one. Yeah. And so I think he is the guy to own there. I think that
offense got notably worse when he left it too.
It did. So, and also when he was in it, he was the leading receiver for a reason. Like because he is the best receiver in that offense. And also he's in a scheme where the receivers can't necessarily produce at a consistent level, but he can. And that's why I like Kraft. And I think when you get him in the 7th round, you're talking about getting a really good buy low there. All right, and then the last two guys, I'm grouping them together because they played together this last year and they kind of have similar situations. Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. Not the sexiest buys here. Not the sexiest buys. The reason I think they're both buys is because they're going to be playing on different teams next year. I think that Rico Dowdle is unlikely to return to Carolina, and he played well enough for stretches of this year that I think he can go somewhere and have a role similar to how he did last year. He's dirt cheap in Dynasty. When you're talking about his startup draft value right now, I mean, you are having, for Chuba Hubbard both Chuba Hubbard and for Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle, you're paying 12th round prices, Chuba Hubbard 13th round prices. They are worth nothing. And I think they both have as much upside as any of these guys in this range to be viable Dynasty backup running backs next year. You're talking about getting these guys as your running back 4 or 5 on your roster. They're great running back 4s or 5s on your roster, to be honest with you. Like, that's great calculated depth that you can acquire there. So when you're talking about moving for these guys, you can down tier from guys like Blake Corum, Jalen Warren, and Dalton Kincaid to both of these running backs. I think that's a decent move. You don't even have to. Honestly, the pivots in the up tiers are the big ones here. Shakir and Ramondre Stevenson. I'd rather have Chuba and Rico Dowdle over both of them. I do like Ramondre still, by the way. And then up tiering from Kenneth Gainwell, Tyjae Spears, and Rashid Shaheed. I just think that these guys are both going to gain some value. When Rico Dowdle signs somewhere else, he'll gain value, and Chuba will gain value because of it. And a lot of people are going to be in the comments and say, what about Jonathan Brooks? And I know that Dave Canales said something about Jonathan Brooks. And believe me, it would benefit Nathan and I more than anybody else in this industry if Jonathan Brooks were to come back and have a great year. Mm. Why? Because we told people in Dynasty rookie drafts, and it ended up being bad advice, we told people that Jonathan Brooks should be selected highly, and we took a lot of Jonathan Brooks in our drafts. And so Nathan and I got stuck holding the bag with Jonathan Brooks. So I personally am invested heavily in him. He's personally invested heavily in him. And we reputation has been somewhat stained by saying, hey, Jonathan Brooks is a guy. Even though he was injured, most people don't hold us against it. It's really not that big of a deal. But again, this is me telling you, nobody has more to gain if Jonathan Brooks becomes relevant than Nathan and I. Really. Like, it's more true than anything I'm going to say on this video. But the fact of the matter is, even though Dave Canales said, oh, we're going to use Jonathan Brooks next year, that's coach speak. You shouldn't read into that. It's classic coach speak. 8.5 months from the season of a guy coming off of a second torn ACL.
He drafted him. Why would he
say that he's not
why would he
going
say
to?
he's not going to utilize him?
Who's he going to say? Jonathan Brooks?
He sucks. He's washed.
We're not doing
done.
it. We're not doing it. Screw
good.
him. You can forget about his rehab. So, look, with Jonathan Brooks, that's not to say, oh, he's not a buy. It's not to say... he's more of a hold than anything is what Nate and I said. I don't think anybody's selling Jonathan Brooks after... And Jonathan Brooks, sure, if you want to go get him for super cheap, if you can get him as a thrown in a deal, do it. I just think, Chuba is still going to be the guy there in Carolina. They have him under contract, and I still think he is going to be better than Jonathan Brooks, at least for the beginning of next year. And then Rico Dowdle's not going to be there. And so, I don't mind Jonathan Brooks as, somebody you get in trades as well. But I think these are the guys that I think could have some, particularly high flex upside next year. They could end up busting. But again, 12th, 13th round prices, who cares? You're literally taking upside shots there anyways. Anybody you're drafting there in a startup most likely is not going to hit at any point anyways. And so I think it's almost a risk-free investment. So we're trying to play the market, trying to be calculated with it. Again, we can give you specific buys for your team. If you get a Dynasty team blueprint, you get one free with the annual Mother Flocker tier with code DOMAIN. So again, sign up with code DOMAIN, submit it to Nathan and I. We can take a look at your team and give you personalized advice. Make sure you get your teams in for Flex Night T-minus a couple days until the deadline the deadline passes and you can't put your teams in anymore. And trust me, you're going to want to be a part of it. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Go send some trades for these players. Peace out.